Welcome once again, my fellow manipulators of digital fate. I'm Richie, this is Capricorn, and today we're back at it with another spoiler video, a set review video for all of the Solfera cards coming in Wonders of the First Set 2 Call of the Stones. We've already delved into all of the Boundless, Heliosynth, and Patria cards that are coming in this set, and now it's time to dig deep into Solfera. There are a ton of crazy cards to get into. Before we dive in, please like the video, please subscribe. All of that stuff helps me out so much, and let's dive in. We're gonna start here with Solferan Formless Stone. This is a zero-cost legendary item, Myth Stone. It counts as a stone. It gives you a Solfera link, and Solfera wonders you control get +1 power. Every single orbital in the game, every single color, all 6 of them, have their own formless stone like this. They all cost 0. They all function the same way for their particular orbital, and they're all incredibly powerful. Being able to play another stone out so that you have more than 7 stones in the game is crazy. You can start with an extra energy at the beginning of every round that you control it. You can have an extra stone that counts towards your win condition, but it is a little bit risky because your opponent can actually seize the stone in combat if they win combat, just like any stone. So you do have to be a little bit careful with it, but these stones are utterly nuts. Moving on, we're going to talk about the tokens, and then we're going to go in order of rarity and talk about every single card in this set. So first off, we've got Gemstone Dragon. This is a zero-cost token wonder dragon, and it's 2 power. So that's the notable thing about the dragon tokens in this set. They do have a base power of 2, which is pretty good. Next up, we've got Mead Hall Master, a zero-cost token wonder Solferan Viking that has 1 power. A Newborn Dragon, a zero-cost token wonder dragon baby with 2 power. A Pillaging Warrior, a zero-cost token wonder Solferan Viking with 1 power again. So as you can see, we have some options for some of these tokens. Utikar Brawler, a zero-cost token wonder Solferan Gladiator Viking with 1 power. And then we're on to our first common of the set. Bloomstone Stream, a zero-cost secondary land, gives you a Solfera link, which will reduce the cost of all of your red Solfera cards by 1 energy, but only the first one. They don't stack. The first land down you play with a Solfera link will reduce the cost of all of your Solfera cards by 1. You can also harvest it to gain an action just like any land, and on play you may tap a wonder you control here. If you do, gain an energy. This actually seems really good. Getting a free energy out of nowhere, and all you have to do is tap a wonder, which probably doesn't even have a tap ability, which doesn't really take anything away from that wonder at all, seems really powerful. We saw a Heliosynth land that was similar to this, except it has the caveat of potentially giving your opponent an energy as well. This one does not. The real downside, the only real downside, is you have to make sure you get a wonder into play first, a wonder without a tap ability to get the most value out of it, and then you play this and get an extra energy. So you're not going to play it immediately as your first land at the beginning of the game and get value. It's something you got to kind of play around and plan around in order to get the value off of it. Either way, I think this is one of the better common lands. You should absolutely be running it in sealed, and it will probably show up in a bunch of constructed decks as well. Next up, we've got Emberblaze Encampment, a zero-cost secondary land. Again, this has a Solfera link and can be harvested to gain an action, just like every land. And on harvest, you may pay 3 energy. If you do, gain a free attack. This is about as close as Solfera comes to giving you 2 actions from 1 land. Almost like a Solferan Indra's Citadel. It's not quite that good, because the free attack you get can only be used to perform an actual attack, which would cost an action otherwise, so it kind of saves you an action, but it's not as versatile, obviously. You also have to pay 3 energy to do it, so it's not without its cost. That being said, a way for 1 land to give you an action and a free attack, and for it to be a common land that's pretty easy to get your hands on, is still really good. You're going to want to jam this in all of your limited decks for sure if you're running Solfera, possibly even as a one of Solferan land in a deck where you're not really running Solfera, just to get access to that ability. It might be good enough, in limited at least. In constructed, there absolutely could be a deck that utilizes this, especially if there is a deck that is built around the free attack mechanic. Next up, we've got Flameheart Pike, a 2-cost secondary item. It's an equipment spear, and whenever equipped wonder attacks, it gets +3 this round. What's cool about that is every single time it attacks, it will get +3. That will last the entire round. So if you have a bunch of extra actions or free attacks, and this thing's on a flyer, you could just attack, 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 move into different realms with each attack, and keep getting more and more buffs that all last until the end of round. Very, very powerful if you set it up right. That being said, if you're not able to generate a whole bunch of extra attacks, sometimes it might not be quite as good. It's not good for defending with, it doesn't do anything when you're on defense. So you do have to play it just right, you have to be aggressive, which Solfera is great at being, but otherwise, it's pretty good. Next up, we've got Fuzzlewurr Emberkin, a 1-cost secondary wonder demon ember monster with 3 power. And that's it. He's just a little guy. He'll fill out your curve. The most notable thing about this is he costs only 1 energy. So even if you're playing limited and you don't have your Solfera land, it's still something you can curve out with play on round 1 right away, put pressure on your opponent, threaten the stone there, regardless of what lands you got. And I feel like wonders that cost 1 are especially important in limited so that you can consistently do that, regardless of whether you get the right lands or not. So this guy could absolutely fit into your curve that way and will probably be important, even if not powerful, in limited. Next up, we've got Gemstone Guardian, a 1-cost primary wonder with 2 power, and it has the Guardian ability giving it +2 power. The way Guardian works is anytime a wonder arrives in the same realm as the thing with Guardian, or moves into the realm as the same realm as the thing with Guardian, it's going to trigger that Guardian ability, which means as soon as this guy's in a realm, every single time you try to put one of your dudes there, he's going to get buffed. So really, really good at kind of defending and locking down a realm, which makes sense. The ability is called Guardian. This one is one that's, I think, is probably a little easily overlooked. For very, very cheap, it can come down, threaten the stone, and then immediately get bigger if your opponent tries to play something to defend against that new threat. You know, it comes down in 1, you've only got 2 power, other 1-cost things are 3 or more, but as soon as they play something to try to defend, it's going to go up to 4. And if they play something else, it'll go up to 6. If they move something in, it'll go up to 8. The potential here is really, really cool. I love the idea of dropping him in a newly opened realm and contesting it, and then watching your opponent panic as they realize that the more they put there, the more they're building up your guy, and they're kind of having to paddle upstream. So, really cool one for limited, I think. Next up, we've got Glick's Wrench Shadow, a 2-cost secondary wonder with 3 power, and on defense, this gets +1 this round. Every single time it defends, it will get a +1 power that lasts the entire round, which it's not crazy huge, it's not a giant buff. Your opponent does have to attack multiple times to really get the true value out of this, but in limited, even just paying possibly as low as 1 energy if you have the land to get a 4-power defender seems kind of okay. It's absolutely usable as a curve filler. Next up, we've got Gutty Grawl, a 3-cost primary wonder beastkin warrior with 3 power. It is a core card, and it has the new Rage ability. So when this guy arrives, you can choose to trigger the Rage if you want to, but you don't have to. The upside of triggering Rage is you immediately get an attack in that realm as part of the same action you used to play the card to begin with. It doesn't take an extra action. You don't even have to pass priority and wait for a turn to come back to you to do it like you normally have to do in attacking. You just immediately attack in. The downside is if you choose to trigger the Rage, you have to sacrifice the wonder with Rage immediately at the end of combat. So you can take a stone without spending an extra action potentially, but then you're not around to help defend that stone and keep it. There are some really interesting synergies you can use to exploit Rage that are cool. It can come down at the very end of the game when your opponent's out of actions and just take a stone somewhere where neither of you have anything and they don't see it coming and they think you've only got 1 action left, and it just comes out of nowhere and takes a stone when normally you'd need 2 actions to do that. Really, really cool play lines. There's also some stuff you can line up with it as far as value you get when you sacrifice things so that you can get more value off of this guy, but even just the versatility of getting to just play him as a normal wonder if the opportunity to use Rage doesn't really present itself seems kind of cool too. So I think this guy's really, really good for limited. I think some of the Rage guys are going to be really good in constructed. I'm not entirely sure if this guy makes the cut though. Next up, we've got Haldor Gearson, a 2-cost secondary wonder with 3 power, and wonders in your hand with cost 6 or more cost 1 less to play. This guy is cool because he comes down and he threatens a realm right away, and then eventually you start playing your bigger guys potentially a whole round earlier than you otherwise would be able to. But what's great about this card in particular, we've had some cards that give cost reductions like that in the past, but never stapled to an actual wonder. So the fact that you can get power in a realm, threaten a realm, force your opponent to have to put their own resources into that realm to make sure you can't take the stone, while also turning on this ability to get cost reduction, is what makes this guy particularly good. Is he good enough for constructed play? I don't know. It's possible. But in limited, if you've got enough 6 or more cost guys, he could definitely be considerable. Next up, we've got Ignis Pyreheart, a 5-cost secondary wonder with 5 power, and on play you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's Solfera, draw it, otherwise bury it. This card is particularly good if you're running a deck comprised entirely of Solfera cards, all red cards. It means it's always going to hit, you're always going to draw a card when you play him. For potentially only 4 energy, getting 5 power and drawing a card is actually really, really efficient. So the more consistent this guy is, the better he is. And if you're in a limited deck that is mostly running Petraea or Solfera, not Petraea, this guy's probably more considerable than he otherwise would be. As far as constructed, I think there are probably just better cards, so I don't know if he makes the cut, but there's always the outside possibility. Next up, we've got Lava Hound of the Core, a 1-cost primary wonder with 2 power. It is a core card, and you can tap free to gain a free attack. I love this card so much. It's one of the better commons. Free attacks are everywhere in Solfera in this set, and this is very similar to a card called Scalder Grimshade that we got in the first set, Existence. It doesn't have some of the extra power buff that card gets with Horde, but what's different about this that's better is you don't have to get the free attack immediately when it arrives, like Scalder Grimshade. With this, you have a tap-free ability that gains you a free attack whenever you want, which means you can put this out early, contest a realm, force your opponent to have to put their resources into that realm to stop you from taking a stone, but you can save that free attack for later when it matters more to have one whole extra attack action maybe in round 7 at the end of the game when taking those stones really matters so that you can get to the win. So being able to save the free attack for later while also getting the power to use right now, I think makes this guy way better than some of you might think on the surface. But next up, we've got Mick Gishlak, a 3-cost secondary wonder with 3 power, and on attack, it gets +2 this round, and then each player gains an energy. This one is really interesting because each player gains an energy. You can get a little bit of extra value out of this if you're patient and careful and you wait for your opponent to be out of actions, because if they don't have any actions to play cards, then they have no way to use that extra energy. So that could be an interesting play line, but even just attacking as, you know, a 5-power wonder that potentially only cost you as little as 2 energy seems pretty decent. You can also just attack multiple times if you want, maybe make good use of those free attacks to generate extra energy to play something really big. So jury's a little bit out on this guy. I think we're going to need to test him and play with him a lot more, especially in limited, before we know exactly how good he is, but he does have a ton of potential. Next up, we've got Nyx Fleetfoot. This card is easily hands down the best common in the set, and I thought for sure it was going to be great. I didn't realize how good it was going to be until I actually played with it. But put this on your radar. This is the Moonfire Crystal Mouse of Call of the Stones. And what I mean by that is in the first set Existence, the card Moonfire Crystal Mouse is almost a must-use, must-play. It's the best common in the set. You can sacrifice it for 2 energy and 2 cards, and it's just way too good to not play. Almost every deck in Constructed is using it, unless they need to save the DBS or they have 0 room for Thalwind at all, which it's not a core card, so that rarely ever happens. And this feels like it's on the same level. Even though it doesn't give you energy, and the first time it triggers, it's not going to give you as many cards as the Moonfire Crystal Mouse, this thing just keeps triggering over and over. It draws so many cards throughout the course of the game. And because you're drawing cards off of it, you're getting that much closer to a second copy. And once you have a second copy of this out, the first time you play a secondary wonder, at the beginning, or any time during the round, you're drawing 2 cards once you have 2 out. It just snowballs into absurdity. The more card draw you have, the quicker you draw into more copies of Nyx, which gives you even more card draw, and it just snowballs into craziness. But what makes this card even better is the fact that that 0 power is not useless. You can put this in an uncontested realm, and if a 0 power wonder attacks and there is no wonder at all on the other side, 0 beats nothing. So you will actually be able to contest a realm, threaten the stone there, and force your opponent to have to commit resources to that realm to stop you from taking the stone with a 0 power Nyx. And then at the end of the day, you don't really care all that much that you weren't able to take the stone. It's a nice extra benefit if you can, but it's there for the card draw. If you can get this out on round 1, it is devastating. You start snowballing card draw, you draw into more, you play more, you get even more card draw, and it just gets absolutely insane. This card, I'm going to say it one more time. Almost every deck will be running this. It's just that good. The card is absolutely crazy. The one big downside it has is that because it is 0 power, literally anything that can kill a wonder can kill this. Even just 1 -1 counter or 1 temporary -1 for the round will kill this. It's very, very vulnerable. So you do have to be careful about that, but the card is just too good to not run regardless. Keep your eye on this one. It's going to be everywhere. But next up, we've got Possessed by Solfera, a 1-cost primary spell, Sigil of Focus. It is a core card, and target wonder gets +3 this round. Whenever you seize a stone with that wonder this round, draw a card. This is interesting, and a card like this gets significantly better if you have a wonder that can seize a bunch of stones in the same round, either because you're attacking multiple times in a realm where you have a bunch of stones, maybe they've played a myth stone and you've played a myth stone and there's a bunch of stones to grab, or maybe there's a wonder that can just steal a bunch of stones all at once, which we will see one of those a little bit later. So there are some ways to line this card up to get you a ton of value. That being said, if you play it fairly, it's just a +3 buff that kind of feels attuned in a way, because the action you spent to play the card really becomes like an action you spent to draw instead, because eventually you seize the stone, you draw a card, so it almost feels like you spent the action to draw the card, and this didn't cost you an action to get your +3 buff. So if your deck can benefit from a +3 buff that feels like it doesn't cost you an action, then this will probably be good for you in Limited. In Constructed, I think you're going to really need to build around it in order to make it worth running in some of the ways I mentioned at the beginning there. Really interesting card, though. Next up, we've got Razor Fire. This is a 2-cost secondary spell, Rite of Focus. Destroy target wonder with cost 3 or less. This is a really, really interesting card. It's good to curve out with, and it's super cheap. You don't have a lot of the red tape that you need to jump through, at least in the early game, with some of the other removal spells. It's not like they have to have played the wonder that round, or they have to have attacked with the wonder, or any of the other stipulations we've seen in the past. It just needs to be cheap enough. And if you have this in the early game, everything they're playing in the first couple rounds is going to be cheap enough. You can kill their Nyx. You know, you can kill their Moonfire Crystal Mouse as soon as they drop it. There is value to be had here. That being said, it does very quickly lose its value as soon as you start getting into the later realms, and you have really expensive stuff being the problem stuff that you need to deal with. So the more your deck cares about tempo and curving out and getting ahead of them in the early game, the more Razor Fire matters, which is why it makes complete sense that this is a Solfera card, because that's kind of what Solfera tries to do anyway. Really interesting card, and we're not going to know quite how good it is until we see it tested thoroughly, both in limited and constructed, but there's a bunch of potential for sure. Next up, we've got Smolderbug, a 2-cost primary wonder insect with 1 power, and it has the Awaken ability granting +3 power and flying. And Awaken is really cool. If you've watched my other videos so far, you know that Awaken triggers if you've seized a stone this round at all. What's cool about that is the act of seizing the stone doesn't just trigger all of the awakened guys that are out. It's the opposite. If you have an awakened guy, it asks the question at all times, has a stone been seized? And if ever the answer is yes, the awaken just turns on. And the difference is if you attack early on in a round and you take a stone, you could still have this guy in your hand, and then later on that same round, you've still seized the stone that round. You play this from your hand, it comes in already awakened. Will immediately come in as a 4-power flyer for potentially as low as 1 energy, which is kind of crazy. And in a color like Solfera, in this orbital where you get free attacks and you get more opportunities to constantly be attacking and triggering that awaken every round, it actually seems pretty powerful. I think this is one where you should highly consider running it in your limited deck, especially because of how powerful moving is in this set. Anything that contains movement, whether it's flying or call abilities, which we'll get to in a bit, all of that stuff's super important. So I think this card is a real contender in limited. You should probably run it for sure. It's possible this could even see play in constructed. It really depends on the DBS value. I'm leaning towards no, because there's just so many more powerful cards in constructed to choose from, but there's absolutely a possibility. Next up, we've got Sun-Eye Warhold, a 0-cost secondary land, gives you a Solfera link, can be harvested to gain an action, and on arrival, you may tap target land here. If you do, tap this. This card is not as good in limited as I think it will be in constructed. In constructed, you have a bunch of other lands that most decks will typically run that give you a lot of action advantage. Stuff like Indra's Citadel that can be harvested for 2 actions instead of 1, or Market of Lost Wonders that could potentially give you 2 actions or an action and some energy. There's all these lands that people typically run in their constructed decks that give you a lot of value, way more value than your normal land. This can come in, tap down their Indra's Citadel, taking away 2 actions from them, and you only lose the 1, tapping your own land here, being unable to harvest the Sun-Eye Warhold. And it has a fail state where, if you don't want to, you don't have to tap down their land, and you get to keep this untapped so that you can harvest it for an action later on. So having that plan B makes it a little bit more versatile. You don't have to worry about having to play this tapped and never getting an action out of it. But if the situation pops up where it's more beneficial for you to tap down their land, shut off one of their special abilities, like maybe they have a Witch Warden, which if you hit enough cards in the Abyss can bring anything back, you can tap that down so that they can't use it. That could be a huge swing. So the versatility of being able to turn off certain harvest abilities on their lands, while also not having to do that if the situation isn't right, I think makes this really good. So in constructed, I expect this to be very considerable, a contender for sure. In limited, jury's out. You know, if you're in a deck where you can get a ton of action advantage, and run this to kind of like get even more value off of that by depleting their actions, even though it's kind of just a 1-for-1, it still might be worth running. Next up, we've got Card of Pink Crystals, our first uncommon of the video. This is a 4-cost primary item. It's a core card, and whenever an opponent spends an action to draw a card, you draw a card. Now, the one thing that's really holding this back is you can only trigger this when your opponent spends an action to draw a card. So if they're using spells or abilities of wonders to draw their cards, you're not going to be able to do it. Stuff like Nyx that we saw a little while ago, Moonfire Crystal Mouse, or Seer's Gaze, or any of the cards that you would play that draw you more cards, none of them are going to trigger the Card of Pink Crystals. It's only going to trigger off of actually spending an action to draw a card organically. So that makes me hesitant to say how good this could be. But I think there is a card out there. I might be wrong, but I think there is a card out there that makes it so that they can only spend actions to draw. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe they can't spend actions to draw cards. There could be some ways for this to synergize with other stuff and make it better, and I'm not entirely sure exactly what that looks like yet. If you have ideas about how that could happen, let me know in the comments. There could be potential here. This is definitely one of those cards that can get better as more sets are released and more things, more cards are potentially released that are forcing your opponent to have to spend actions to draw cards rather than, you know, use spells and abilities and that sort of thing. But as it stands, jury's out. This could still be good enough. You could still play this in games where your opponent kind of has to spend actions. If they even spend just 1 or 2 actions over the course of the game to draw cards, this seems pretty good. How many cards do you need to draw with this in order for it to be worth spending an action and potentially as low as 3 energy? I would argue probably 3. So any deck where you can consistently be pretty assured that your opponent will spend at least 3 actions to draw cards over the course of the game, this gets better. Maybe in some sort of a taxing deck where you make it really hard for your opponent to play things, and because of that, the only way they can spend their actions is to draw cards. Otherwise, they just waste their actions because they're not able to play the things they need to play as easily. Maybe you could do that. Maybe you could force their back into a corner where the only viable thing to use their actions on is drawing, and if they do, you get to draw as well, and it's kind of a, you know, out of the frying pan into the fire sort of scenario. Maybe that's a deck to try building. We should probably try building that deck. I'm going to try building that deck. But next up, we've got Cinderblaze Enclave, a 0-cost secondary land. It is a Solfera link and harvest to gain an action like every land. On harvest, if this is in a high realm, create a 1-power Viking token here. Realms 5, 6, and 7 are high realms. So this is, again, one of that cycle of lands that makes a 1-power token if it's in a high realm. And these cards are kind of a mixed bag. You can't play with just all of these cards, or else the stuff that you play early, you're not going to get any extra value off of. But it would be nice to play these later on, once 5, 6, and 7 open up, to get free dudes in those realms, essentially, where you can put pressure on the realm there, put pressure on the stone, without even having to play another card. Just the land that you would want to play anyway, that you can harvest to get an action back later. So I think maybe decks that try to have a decent split of cards like this and normal lands to play early, so that if you do have this in your early hand, but you have another Solfera land as well, you can play that one early, get the value out of that one early, and save this one for later. It's probably the best way to use this. Next up, we've got Cool Flame Dagger, a 1-cost secondary item equipment. Whenever this equips, Equipped Wonder gets +4 this round. What's cool is it triggers on equip, which means you want to be able to equip this over and over and over and over and over again. The only way you can equip something is if a new wonder is played into the same realm as this. You can choose to equip it to the new wonder. Or if this is in a realm alone with no wonders there, just sitting there on the ground, and something moves into that realm with flying or call or some of the other ways to move things, it can pick up the equipment. So this is probably best in a deck. This is probably best in a deck where you're constantly creating wonders in the same realm, but then being able to somehow maybe sacrifice those wonders so that this falls off and is ready to re-equip again. This is a tricky one. This is a real tricky one. I'm going to put it out to you guys. If you know how to best take advantage of this card, let me know in the comments. I feel like there's something there. I feel like there's some kind of an archetype where you can constantly re-equip this, find ways to constantly re-equip it, and get its value. And if there is, this could be really, really good. It effectively costs 0 energy if you have the right land in play. It'll still cost an action, but being able to get +4, and it's not the first time it equips either. If you could find a way to re-equip this like 3 times in the same round, you'd get a total of +12 power for that round, and that's a lot for 0 energy. So there's absolutely potential here. But let me know in the comments how you think we should try to tap into it. Next up, we've got Crimson Wave Assassination, a 4-cost secondary spell, Rite of Focus. Destroy target wonder with no other wonders in the same realm. I love this card. You have to plan around it just right, and you have to sort of build into the scenario to get value out of it, but when you do, it feels so good. A lot of times when your opponent makes a huge bomby play, they put a dude into a realm that is so big it's just going to lock down that realm altogether, and you're going to have almost no chance to take it back. A lot of times they get a hubris in that situation. They get kind of a little bit of an ego, like, oh, they're never going to be able to take out this realm, so they don't put anything else there. And as long as you don't put anything else there, you're able to use Crimson Wave Assassination to kill their huge giant bomb guy, because they're greedy and they're not putting anything else there, thinking they can use just that one guy to hold down the realm. And if you plan around it correctly, you can hold this in your hand, let him think he has control of the realm, don't put anything there, he doesn't bother to put anything else there, and then eventually towards the end of the game, when there aren't many actions left, and he thinks he's got that realm on lock and doesn't need to worry, you can come out of nowhere, Crimson Wave Assassination, and then maybe play like a rage guy, or maybe make a token there with the land that we saw, or something like that. There's a lot of interesting ways to use this, but you can also just, like, wait for them to play a dude in a newly unlocked realm, and it's the only thing there once they do, and immediately kill it with Crimson Wave Assassination. So there's a couple different ways to use this. In some ways it can feel like Rend, and in other ways it can feel a lot better than Rend, and I think that versatility makes it a little bit better than Rend, in my opinion. Absolutely love this card. I used it in my limited deck all weekend. Next up, we've got Crystal Colossus, a 3-cost secondary wonder with 3 power, and it has Awaken +1 power, but also whenever this awakens, you gain an energy. So the more things arrive or move into the same realm as this guy on your opponent's side, the more energy you can generate. This is really, really good in a call deck. You can use your own guys with the call ability to move your opponent's stuff into the realm with the Crystal Colossus, forcing them to trigger your Awaken and give you energy. That's a really interesting playline that I kind of love, and for you, those of you that don't know what call is, we'll get to that in a bit when we see one of the call cards. But either way, I think this card has a lot of potential. Next up, we've got Emberclaw Night Stalker, a 3-cost secondary wonder with 6 power. It is vanilla, so that's it. No crazy abilities, but pound for pound, this is very efficient. It can lock down a lane for very little energy, as little as 2 if you have the link, and it is absolutely a high contender to fill out your curve in limited. Next up, we've got Exogloam Reptile, a 4-cost secondary wonder dragon beast with 4 power. It is a core card, so you're going to need that Solfera land with a Solfera link before you can play it. On arrival, you gain a free attack. It's unstable, which means at the end of the round you have to sacrifice it, but on death you get to create a 2-power dragon token here, or destroy target item with cost 2 or less. The versatility of this card is nuts. Temporary 4 power, free attack so it almost feels like the card's attuned and doesn't cost an action, and an on-death trigger that gives you either value or gets rid of a problematic thing. This card feels almost like a sideboard card that's just in the deck, and it can be super versatile and go so many different ways. Not only that, but because this is going to die to the unstable anyway, it is a prime target for sacrifice effects. You have something like Deconstruct, where you have to sacrifice one of your own wonder in order to get value. You can sacrifice this guy to get value, and you're not really losing anything because he was going to die at end of round anyway. That combined with the free attack, the free 2-power dragon, potentially killing an item, the 4 power for now, which is maybe enough to take a stone or defend a stone for the round until your opponent's out of actions, and then you do your sacrifice shenanigans. Like, there's just so much value packed into this one card, as long as you find the ways to exploit it all. And I absolutely love it. It's probably an auto-include if you have it in your limited deck, and I'm not entirely sure if it's good enough for constructed, but in a sacrifice deck, it might be. It's definitely in contention. Next up, we've got Flamecrest Monarchy Sentinel, a 3-cost secondary wonder with 1 power. It is a core card, and it has Awaken +6 power. That is absolutely insane. for as little as 2 energy, if you've taken the stone this round, you jam this guy and he just comes in as a 7 power dude for 2 energy. That is like crazy, crazy stats. Absolutely nuts. Now, granted, you do need to make sure you're triggering Awaken and that you can do that consistently. This guy is ever just 1 power for the round. It's going to feel super bad. But if you're running him, then you're probably building around the ability to do that within your deck, and he could be kind of nuts. In the right limited deck, I think he's an auto-include. Outside of that, if you're not building around constantly being able to take stones, and you do have to be really careful with that, because if you take all the stones too early and your opponent just lets you keep them, you lose the ability to have stones to take in order to trigger your Awaken later on. So it can get a little tricky. You have to be very careful with how many stones you take early, what stones you take, and leaving some stones open, even if you have the power to take them, to make sure you can turn on your Awaken abilities later on. But like I said, in the right limited deck, I think this guy is nuts. I don't think he quite makes the cut for Constructed, but it is possible. +6 on Awaken is a lot. Next up, we've got Firiana Embercraft, a 1-cost secondary wonder with 2 power. It has Heart of a Legend, which means all of its abilities trigger an extra time if you control another legendary wonder. And on attack, if you control a stone here, this gets +2 this round. What an interesting card. You have to control the stone to get the +2, but if you control the stone, then why are you attacking? Right? Very, very interesting. I'm sure there are some cards you can build around this with. The Heart of a Legend means for potentially as low as 0 energy, this could attack as a 6 power wonder. And if they play Myth Stones into the realm, even though you've already attacked previously and taken the normal stone there, you could then want to attack again to take their Myth Stone and get the value off of this. Also, you could just have things that are in the realm that you want to attack with in order to trigger their on-attack abilities. But make sure that you don't lose the stone in the process, in which case the buff could get you up high enough to make sure that you don't lose the stone on the attack that you want to do regardless, because you want to trigger your on-attack abilities, or maybe you want to fly something out of the realm. So there are some interesting, weird ways you can try to utilize this, but at the end of the day, I'm not really sure what deck this wants to be in. What deck are you consistently controlling a stone in a realm where you want to attack in? I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments if you know. Seems like they want you to build something specific around this. They have something in mind. This is not nothing. I'm excited to figure out what that is. But next up, we've got Obsidious Spiceway, a 3-cost legendary wonder with 2 power, and on play, you untap target Solferan legendary wonder. This is another one of those cards from the cycle of cards that untap a legendary of their color. And these cards, again, I'll say what I've said for all of them, they're going to get way better as more and more sets release. As you have access to more legendary wonders that you can untap with this, the consistency of it starts to increase to a point where eventually it hits critical mass and it's really, really good. Right now, it'll still be kind of good if you can line things up just right, if you're lucky enough to have your powerful tap abilities when you have this guy and you can untap them and use them again. But how good are they just now? Hard to say. I think we're going to have to play more with them, both in Limited and Constructed, before we know. Next up, we've got Petunia, a 3-cost primary wonder. Beastkin Pig Hero with 2 power. It is a core card, and on attack, you put a +1 counter on this. Now, this is what I like to see. If you're attacking multiple times in the same realm, every attack's going to put a counter on this. This guy's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually be a force to reckon with. If you could somehow give this guy flying, or just use your call abilities to move him around to different realms so that he can always help take a stone in the attack without wasting an action and just get extra +1 counters as pure gravy, then that seems kind of cool. Is it worth the hoops to jump through to do it? Not sure, but it's definitely worth exploring. Next up, we've got Spiny Justix Ebb, a 5-cost legendary wonder demon insect monster with 4 power. It is a core card, and it has the Rage ability, so you can attack immediately with it if you choose to, but if you do, you sacrifice it right at the end of combat. Immediately, you're not able to defend with it. Again, these cards are really, really cool for the end of the game, when your opponent thinks that you can't take a stone because you only have 1 action left, and then you just jam it in a realm that's, you know, open and just take the thing with the same action. Feels really, really good. I can't wait to explore more with the Rage. I think a Rage deck could be real. But next up, we've got 𝑇𝑒𝑟𝑟𝑎𝑛𝑐𝑒, a 2-cost primary wonder with 3 power, and it has the Guardian ability giving +2 power. Nothing super crazy, but it will help to fill out your curve in Limited. Next up, we've got Viklara, a 4-cost secondary wonder with 4 power, and it has the tap free ability. You may banish a Solfera first form from your hand. If you do, untap this, and this becomes a copy of it this round. So this is another card from a cycle where we have one in each of the orbitals. And these cards, again, just like the last cycle I was talking about, get way, way better as each set releases, and we get access to more first forms to choose from. Once we hit that critical mass of enough, this will become hyper consistent. You'll almost always have one in your hand. And when that happens, you're essentially getting a much more expensive first form Bomby Wonder out a lot earlier. Even though it's technically not coming out, this is just becoming a copy of it. Functionally, it will be the same. Very, very interesting card, and I'm excited to see just how good it ends up being and how quickly we hit that critical mass where it ends up being hyper consistent. Next up, we've got Calder Blazebringer. This is our first rare of the set. A 5-cost primary wonder with 6 power, has a tap free ability. Target wonder gets +1 this round for each stone you control. Seems really, really good in the Myth Stone deck, where maybe you're trying to run all 6 orbitals and all 6 Myth Stones, and you can just play them all and boost this guy to insanity. Kind of cool. That being said, it's a tap free. You can only use the ability once. You probably want to save it for round 7. And you probably want to try to control most of the stones. Just seems like a pound for pound powerful card if you've built the right deck around it. Next up, we've got Crown of the Entombed. This one's really interesting. A 3-cost legendary item, Equipment Crown. Equipped wonder gets +1 power, and you can't sacrifice wonders at end of battle. This does not only work for the thing it's equipped to. All of your wonders cannot be sacrificed at end of battle. This thing takes Rage cards and turns them from a sometimes things will line up right for them to be useful to, oh my god, they're always amazing. Like, every single Rage card, once you have this in play, is allowing you to attack for free and still keep the wonder, which is just absolutely bananas. If there is a Rage deck, this will 1000% be in it, and I'm excited to see if that deck is real, because it could be absolutely nuts. Next up, we've got Deliberate Backlash, a 4-cost primary spell, Rite of Resonance, and you distribute X +1 counters on any number of target wonders, where X is the cost of the last card target opponent played. So you wait for them to play something huge, you get a ton of counters, you make it really, really hard for them to use their huge thing to take the stone in the realm that they played it, most likely, because then you're buffing up your side in that same realm by as much or more power, potentially. If you use it just right, I think it can be powerful. That being said, it is restrictive, right? You do have to wait and see what your opponent does to really figure out how powerful the spell can be. And you have to make sure you have the energy and the action left at the right time when they do play that huge thing to take advantage of it. If you've already played something else and then they play the huge thing and you're just wishing they waited until next round when you had your actions and energy back, it could end up biting you in the butt. So, hard to say how good this one is, but I feel like there's potential here. Next up, we've got Magna Coalstone, a 3-cost primary wonder with 0 power. It is a core card, and stones you control can't be seized from battles here. So this is basically a Dwarven Vault, except a wonder instead of an item, which I kind of love. It's a lot easier to put things like shield counters on this guy, or put equipment on him that protects him from being targeted or destroyed. There's ways to protect the Magna Coalstone that you can't use to protect the Dwarven Vault. That being said, it's also more vulnerable initially. At only 0 power, literally any removal in the game can kill him, even just one -1 counter or one temporary -1. So you do have to set it up and be careful. But if you're using equipment like the suit or the new eye patch, which we haven't talked about yet, which we'll talk about once we get the Thawind, you could play that equipment first and then play this onto the equipment with your next action, and it immediately comes in protected and doesn't give your opponent a window to deal with the thing. And in cases like that, it does end up being better than Dwarven Vault. It also can use its power to take a stone if there's nothing on the other side, which is something Dwarven Vault can't do. It also can just put more equipment on it and actually become a relevant wonder with stats, which Dwarven Vault can't do. So there are a lot of upsides here compared to Dwarven Vault. Even though there are some downsides, some ways in which in some games it might not be as good, I think more often than not, this card is better, and it could end up being nuts. We're going to have to test it more for sure. Next up, we've got Merrick Santiga, a 5-cost primary wonder with 5 power. It is a core card, and on arrival, you gain a free attack, but it also has Heart of a Legend. And this is a primary, so you can have 2 in your deck. If you have another legendary wonder in play when you play this, you'll get 2 free attacks and 5 power somewhere for as little as 4 energy. That's actually really good. If you're in the deck that's built around those free attacks and getting as much value as you can out of those free attacks, this card might be an auto-occlude. At the very least, you definitely want to run it in Limited. Granted, it's a rare, it's not going to show up a ton in Limited, but you absolutely slam it if it does. In Constructed, if there is a free attack deck, I think this guy will be a part of it. Next up, we've got Mountain Sovereign Worm, a 5-cost legendary wonder Dragon Lava Beast. With 6 power, it is a core card, it has flying, and on attack you may destroy target enemy with cost 2 or less here. This reminds me a lot of the Revolutionary Cannon from the first set Existence, except that can be equipped to something else and used with anything, but the downside is you need to have another wonder in order to use that. This just already comes in with the ability, and it's flying, which means the ability can move into other realms and be wherever you need it to be after you've played this. I think this card is really, really good. As little as 4 energy for 6 power flying, moving wherever it needs to take whatever stones to defend wherever, and every time you attack, you kill something with cost 2 or less there, if they have something there. It's just value. It's just straight value. Is it good enough for Constructed? I think it might be. There's a chance it might not, only because some of the cards are cracked as far as power. Some of the cards are absolutely nuts, so maybe not. But it has potential for sure. In Limited, you just jam it, which it's a rare, so that's probably expected, but yeah. Next up, we've got Raiding Sage. This is a 2-cost primary wonder with 2 power. On arrival, you put a protector counter on this, and tap free, create a 1-power Viking token here or in an adjacent realm. This does a lot for very little. For only as little as 1 energy, you get 2 power in a realm, you get a protector counter, which makes them have to waste an extra action when they do decide to try and take a stone there, and eventually down the line, you can make a 1-power dude in whatever adjacent realm you want. If that realm is uncontested, it means it gives you the ability to take the stone there without having to spend an action to play a wonder, which is awesome. Or it could just be the little extra power you need to defend a realm, or finally take a realm in a realm where there are other things. So there's a lot of versatility in how you can use that token that you create, and the fact that you get that versatility on hand to use whenever you want on the back of already getting value with a 2-power wonder for 1 energy and a protector counter makes this thing just chock full of value in a way. I really, really like it, and I like it in a way where I think people are going to sleep on it a little bit. I think people are going to underestimate this card, especially if you happen to get it in your limited pool, and I think it could end up being really good. Next up, we've got Raxus Warstorm. This is a 3-cost primary wonder with 3 power. It is a core card, and on round start, each player taps a land they control. What an interesting card. So this deck wants to be a deck where you're not playing a lot of lands, or you don't care that your stuff is tapped, you just want to tap their lands. If them losing potential actions hurts them more than you losing potential actions, then this is just going to be good. I think probably the best deck to use this in is a deck utilizing a whole bunch of the untapped lands from the first set Existence, where if you play the 3rd one of a color, you get to untap any of the other ones that are out. If you play with a bunch of those and set yourself up where it doesn't really matter if all your stuff is tapped, because in the last round you can play a couple more lands and untap a bunch of lands and have them all untapped anyway, this doesn't feel quite as bad, right? What it really means is you don't want to save any of your potential harvests. You want to use them every single round so that you don't have to tap one. If all your stuff is tapped at the beginning of the round, you just tap an already tapped land and it doesn't hurt you. So if you have a play style where you're constantly utilizing all of your harvests immediately and getting that value immediately and trying to outplay your opponent as far as tempo, it's going to be really, really good, because it's not really going to hurt you that much, but it's going to constantly force them into a situation where they can't really save their value for later. Really interesting card. This is definitely another one we're going to have to experiment with and play with before we figure out just how good it is, but in the right deck, it'll be nuts. Next up, we've got Red Feather Eye Eater, a 4-cost secondary wonder with 4 power. It has flying, and on defense, it gets +2 this round. Really interesting card. You drop it in a realm to defend it. If they attack, you get boosted up, and then you get to attack back to retake the stone and fly it somewhere else, and it will keep that boost if it's the same round, which means you can use now a 6-power wonder, or potentially an 8-power wonder if they attacked into it twice, to fly into other realms and take stones elsewhere and make use of the power that you generated on defense. Really, really interesting card. I'm excited to mess around with this one. It's one that when I first saw it, I kind of thought wasn't that great, but after playing against it in limited, I realized it can be nuts. I mean, it is a rare, so rares and limited, I guess it makes sense, but there are situations in which this card can be really hard to play around, and I think it definitely deserves consideration. Next up, we've got Stimbleweed Steel, a 3-cost legendary wonder with 3 power, has a tap-free ability to destroy target item here, then gain energy equal to its cost if you control the stone here. What a cool card. Just the fact that you can put power in a realm now, pressure your opponent, and still have access to a way to, out of nowhere, without spending an action, kill any item later on, is kind of good. Granted, it does have to be an item that's here, so you might want to wait to play this until you know where the item you need to kill is going to be. But if you're in the right deck with stuff like call cards, you could always call this into the realm that you need it to be in to then use the ability to destroy an item. And if you do, you gain a bunch of energy and maybe play out your bomb way earlier than you should be. There's potential for the ceiling of this card to be really, really crazy high. We're going to have to mess around with it. A lot of these cards need to be tested and experimented with before we truly know just how powerful they are. But this is definitely one of those that has a ton of potential. Next up, we've got Stolo Rockthorn, a 2-cost secondary wonder with 0 power. It is a core card. It has that rage ability we were talking about earlier. And on attack, you put 2+1 counters on this. So this one is even better if you choose not to use the rage. I almost look at the rage on this one as sort of extra. In a situation where you really need the rage, maybe you drew this really late in the game, you're in round 7, and you'd rather save it to rage out with your last action and take an extra stone to try to win, to try to surprise your opponent. But what's cool about this is if you get it earlier in the game, where that situation isn't great for you, it can just be a dude. You can just play this for as little as 1 energy in a realm, and attack to take the stone, get 2 counters, and sure, it's only a 2 power that costs you 1 energy, but it's also gaining 2 counters every single time you attack, and potentially very quickly turning into a very viable threat. So the fact that this is versatile, and you can use it in multiple ways, it's really, really interesting to me, and it's another one that I want to try messing around with, especially in the Rage deck. Next up, we've got Unbreakable Courage. This is a 4-cost primary spell, Rite of Resonance. And this round, wonders you control with cost 2 or less get Guardian +2. If you're going super wide with a bunch of tokens or a bunch of really cheap wonders, and then all of a sudden you jam this, preferably in 7 where it matters the most, your whole board getting Guardian +2 is nuts. If you have got like 4 token wonders in one realm, anytime they play something there, all 4 of them have Guardian +2, and you get like an 8 power buff if they play something there or move something there. If every realm looks like that, if you have 2, 3, 4 wonders in every single realm, if you're just going super wide with craziness, even if they're all very low power wonders, you jam this later on and it's absolutely nutty. So granted, they do have to play wonders there, so you kind of have to be ahead so that it forces them to need to play wonders there. But I think in the right deck, you can line this up in some really significant ways. This is another one that I'm not going to get to right away as far as experimenting with and deck teching with, but down the line, this is one that I definitely want to explore and just see how crazy we can get this thing to pop off with a board that's absolutely insane. Next up, we've got Unsavory Hearth, a 0-cost primary land. Gives you that Solfera link, can be harvested to gain an action, and each round, the first time you gain a free attack from a card in this realm, you gain 2 free attacks instead. And I think it's very cute that they included the cauldron in the background there. That's a reference to the card from the first set, Existence, that can give you free attacks. Obviously, the free attack deck wants to be a real thing, and if it is, this card will be a part of it, and you could potentially get some really, really crazy value off of this. What's cool too is you don't have to use the free attack in the same realm as this card. You just have to generate the free attack in this realm. So the common we saw earlier that can tap free to gain a free attack, if that is in this realm, when you gain it, you'll gain 2, even if you use those free attacks in other realms. And that makes it super interesting. I definitely want to build the free attack deck. It seems like it could be busto. But next up, we've got Blazeholm Cathedral, our first epic in the video. A 0-cost primary land. Gives you that Solfera link. Can be harvested to gain an action. And on harvest, whenever an opponent seizes a stone here this round, you gain a free attack. So if you can see it coming, this is a way to sort of protect yourself and gain extra value. Potentially what feels like an extra action, as long as you're able to capitalize on that free attack. Kind of for nothing, right? You just play this into a realm that you're defending, and anytime your opponent plays something that gives them enough power to finally attack in, when they pass priority back to you, you just harvest it and make it so it's bad for them to attack. Seems really good. At the very least, you force them to have to wait an entire round for this ability to wear off to finally attack in the place that they probably want to attack right now, or else why did they play the significant power into that realm? So really, really interesting card. And again, if this gives you a free attack in the same realm as the last card we saw, you're going to get 2. If you line this up just right, it can be nuts. Next up, we've got Brimstone Obelisk, and I'm still trying to figure out how good this card is. A 6-cost primary item utility. Whenever a player attacks here, each player loses 1 action. I'm almost wondering if this is worth running in a Luminous Scarab deck. You're constantly attacking with the Scarab to null out lands, but in the process, you're hitting their actions. And sure, you're losing your actions as well, but if you have more actions than your opponent, or you can just force it to hurt them more to lose the actions than it hurts you, it still feels like it might be worth at least trying. If you have a whole bunch of like harvestable wonders or lands that give you extra actions, if you can just have higher action potential than your opponent, it's going to hurt them a lot more to lose the action than it will hurt you. And if you can be nulling out a land in the process with a Luminous Scarab and taking away their action potential, that helps it to hurt more. So I think that might be a deck to try to build with this, which I think a lot of people are going to facepalm if they come up against it. But there's probably some other interesting ways to use this card as well. It all comes down to not losing actions hurting you, and not letting the loss of actions hurt you and making sure it hurts them more than you. So it could also be really useful in the free attack deck, where you use out all your actions, but you have a bunch of free attacks where you can still attack, and with those attacks, take away their actions, and you're already out of actions, so you have nothing to lose. So there's definitely ways to make this work that are interesting. It is definitely a build around. You don't just jam it in any deck. You need to be able to get more out of them losing an action than they get out of you losing an action. That is the most important part. Next up, we've got Charcoal Whisperer Cat, a 4-cost primary wonder with 6 power. It is a core card, and on attack, target player may spend an action to draw a card. What an interesting card. Like, you're never going to want to target yourself, right? Because if you do, like, you could just spend an action to draw a card anyway. It doesn't really feel good, but do you really want to give your opponent the ability to spend? They're just not going to, right? They're just not going to spend the action to draw the card. So, I'm not really sure how this card should be used. This is definitely one I'm going to have to think on. I'll let you guys know in the comments if I come up with anything. In fact, if you guys come up with anything, let me know in the comments. There has to be something in particular they have in mind for building around this card. and I just can't think what that could be, because anyone can spend an action to draw a card whenever they want. So why would it matter if you let someone spend an action to draw a card? I guess if you're able to spend an action to draw a card without actually having to spend a turn to do it, right? You spend your turn to attack. You spend 2 actions, you get to attack and draw a card before letting your opponent do anything, rather than attacking with 1 action, then let your opponent do something, and then drawing with 1 action. I don't know if that matters or how much that matters, but that's the only thing I can come up with on the top of my head. So if you have ideas about how to utilize this card, how to build around it, how to get value out of it, let me know in the comments. Next up, we've got Feathered Titan, a 7-cost secondary wonder with 9 power. It is a core card, and if you control a stone here, it gets +4 and flying. So it can fly out of realms that have the stone, but then it can get stuck in realms where you don't have the stone. Basically, anytime you attack to trigger the flying, you have to make sure that attack gets you the stone or allows you to still keep the stone. Which is interesting, but if you can, this costs as little as 6 energy for potentially a 13 power flyer, which is not nothing. This thing can just brute force its way through board states, which is really, really interesting. It's obvious auto jam if you get it in limited, but I'm really curious to see if this shows up in constructed. Next up, we've got Gorak Iron Fist, a 4-cost primary wonder with 5 power. It is a core card, and it has a Guardian ability that gives him +2 power, but also puts a protector counter on him. This is actually really, really good. As long as you drop him in a realm where you already control the stone and you just need to defend there, you make it really, really hard for your opponent to ever take the stone there. Every single time they put another wonder there to try to have enough power to take the stone, not only do you buff the power on him so that maybe it isn't enough power to take the stone, but you also get a protector counter so that even if it is, they have to spend an extra action to jam in. The more things they play there to try and increase their power, the more protector counters you get, which is just crazy. And then you could just respond by playing a guy into that realm, even if they do finally get to enough power, and you're still locking it down and making it so they can't attack and remove those protector counters. Or if you're really smart, you make them waste actions attacking there to taking away the protector counters by winning, and then once your last protector counter goes away, then you play another wonder there to defend, and now they can't do the final attack to take the stone, but they did waste all of those actions getting rid of the protector counters. There's some really cool ways you can use this guy. He was absolutely nuts in limited anytime I came up against him. I had him in my deck, never really got the opportunity to use him to his full extent in my deck, but I had opponents that absolutely did, and he was crazy. Next up, we've got Ironhorn the Unstoppable, an 8-cost legendary wonder demon giant monster with 6 power. It is a core card, and it gets +2 for each stone you control. This card absolutely wants to be in the deck that takes all the stones early, turns on all your horde cards from the first set existence, and maybe even just plays all of the myth stones, all of the formless stones, so that you could just buff this guy up to insanity and make a realm almost impossible to take over unless they get rid of him. Really, really interesting card that wants to go in a very specific deck. Next up, we've got Oliva of the Healing Hearth, a 3-cost secondary wonder with 4 power, has Heart of a Legend, so its abilities will trigger twice if you control another legendary wonder, and has a tap-free ability where each player gains 2 energy. Making your opponent gain energy as well as yourself seems like a downside, but if you do have another legend, and you tap this, you gain 4, you make them gain 4, there is a card from existence that allows you to cut their energy in half and gain 5 energy if they have 10 or more energy. This could be an enabler to make that happen, right? So I definitely feel like there's ways to get value off of giving your opponent energy, and if you can build around that, she can be really, really crazy. But even if you're just, playing this in limited where you have bombs and you're confident your bombs are better than their bombs, and you're getting the energy you need to play your bombs, and they can't keep up with what you're playing, it could be pretty nuts. Definitely one to watch out for and one to test. There is a lot of potential. Next up, we've got Slagfoot the Crushing Furnace, a 6-cost legendary wonder elephant lava beast with 9 power. A whopping 9 power. It is a core card, and on round end, you may destroy target token. Really good anti-Stone Seeker card. Just getting to destroy like Quantris the Relentless or any of the big nasty story tokens that Stone Seekers make seems really good. And the fact that you can just also destroy other tokens if they don't have any story tokens out is a nice little plan B built in. But even if you're just getting the 9 power for 5 energy, it's not nothing. Like, having that extra versatility of if they happen to get nasty tokens into play, you can just get rid of them on top of a relatively efficient power for cost. Kind of seems good. Next up, we've got Sturm the Uniter, a 3-cost secondary wonder with 3 power. It is a core card, and each legendary wonder you control with cost 7 or greater gets on arrival, put 5 +1 counters on this. This could be really, really good in the right deck. The problem is how many cost 7 or greater wonders are you going to be able to play in the same game? If you can play a bunch of them and get a bunch of these triggers, then this guy is going to be really good. And I think there are some other cards we saw that help make expensive wonders more manageable and play them for a little bit cheaper. And maybe this card and cards like that just all want to go in the same deck together, so you can power out a bunch of expensive legendary wonders and get as much value as possible. That could be a deck. Jury's out. Somebody make it. Next up, we've got Thirst for Battle, a 4-cost primary spell, Rite of Epic. This is a core card. Trigger all on-attack abilities of wonders you control in target realm and adjacent realms. This one's really cool. It could work well with the card we saw earlier that I was scratching my head on, where, you know, if you control a stone, you get a buff on attack. Maybe you don't actually have to attack to trigger that. You just use this spell and you get the buff there so that you can successfully defend the stone you have. That could be kind of cool if you can trigger all of the other on-attack abilities and get a bunch of value, especially if it's in a realm where you don't want to actually attack. Maybe your opponent has things that trigger on defense or when you attack that you don't want to trigger, but you want to get all of your on-attack abilities to trigger. This could do that. I have a feeling there are very specific cards that work insanely well with this, and they're just waiting for the community to figure out what that is and try to build something around it. If you have ideas, again, I know I sound like a broken record. I'm saying this on a lot of cards, but if you have ideas, let me know in the comments. And again, I've been saying this a lot as well, but it has a ton of potential, and I'm excited to find out how deep this card can go. Next up, we've got Thunderstrike Volcanic Dragon, a 4-cost primary wonder Dragon Lava Beast. It's only 1 power. It is a core card, but it has flying, and whenever you end a round with unspent energy, put that many +1 counters on this. Now, what's cool about this ability is you don't have to spend that energy in order to put the counters on. So if you have other cards that care about having unspent energy, all of them will trigger. If you have 2 of these in play and you have 5 unspent energy, each one will get 5 counters. It's not like you have to spend the energy and decide where those counters go for each energy spent. It's just looks at how much unspent energy you have. There's also a card from Existence, the first set, that cares about having unspent energy and giving you more energy in the next realm, if in the next round rather, if you have unspent energy in the previous. So that would trigger, and this would trigger. I'm really curious to see if maybe that could be a deck. Seems really good. Somebody used this against me in Limited and was able to get it super huge, but at the cost of not using that energy to play some pretty significant cards. So there is a risk reward, and I think if you can build a deck around mitigating that and getting as much value as possible out of unspent energy, this could end up being really, really good. Next up, we've got Thundil Quiver Spike, a 7-cost primary wonder with 7 power. It's a core card, and it has the Awaken ability granting +2 power, and enemy token wonders get -2. This will just literally kill every 1 power token wonder under your opponent's control on the board all at once if you awaken it, which is kind of crazy to me. But even if it doesn't kill the wonder, the token wonder, you're gonna significantly debuff it, right? To potentially 0 power, or even if it's like a angel token, it would be at 2 power, be cut in half basically. There can be a lot of value here. Granted, it's expensive at 7 energy, 6 if you control the link, but you also get 7 power, and that's not nothing. In fact, that will be 9 power if you're awakened. There is room for this card to be absolutely nuts. It just has to be used against the right deck in the right scenario. Next up, we've got our very first mythic. We're finally to the mythics. This is 𝐴 the Roaring Storm, a 9-cost legendary wonder. It's got 12 power, it is a core card, it has flying, and you call all wonders whose controller controls a stone here. So when you play this, it's not just a call for one thing you target, it's a call for everything on one side of the board. And if you control the stone where you play it, you call all of your wonders one realm closer to 𝐴. But if you play it in a realm where your opponent controls the stone, which is more likely so that you can use the 12 power to attack in and take it, you get to call all of their wonders one realm closer, which can absolutely mess up all of their math, leave some of their realms undefended, and just put them into really awkward scenarios. This is another one of those cards that there's so much variability on it, and it could just change moment to moment based on the board state that it's really, really hard to gauge. It's definitely going to be super powerful no matter what. But to what degree? Just how crazy is this? How much can it affect the board in one go? We're really going to have to play around with it and test it and try some games before we truly know the extent of how nuts this card is. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say very, very nuts. Next up, we've got Crimson Reaver, the Bloodline Ender, a 4-cost legendary item equipment sword. Equipped Wonder gets +3 power. On arrival, you choose a class, and whenever Equipped Wonder battles, destroy each wonder of that class here. So first of all, you have to be careful to not choose a class that you're using in that realm, because you don't want to kill your own stuff. But also, if you can synergize this with things that allow you to turn your opponent's stuff into the class you want it to be, you can just set yourself up to be able to kill even more things. At the very least, you're going to put this into play, and you're going to name a class of your opponent's most problematic wonder, the thing you absolutely need to get rid of, their big bomb. And you're going to make sure you put this in the realm that it needs to be in order to kill that big bomb. So in a way, you can kind of just see this as a 1-for-1 piece of spot removal that costs you as little as 3 energy and also buffs up your dude +3. And when you think about it like that, it's really good. But the fact that sometimes it's going to be able to kill multiple things, and if it's on a flyer, it can maybe even move to different realms and kill things in other realms too. There's nowhere to go but up. The ground floor is just really effective 1-for-1 removal, but the ceiling is potentially way up here. And if we can find cards to pair with this that let us turn our opponent's stuff into the classes that we want, it could just get even more crazy. So this is one I want to mess with for sure. I think it's going to be stronger than a lot of people think, although maybe not. I think some people are keen to just how crazy this can be. Next up, we've got Fist of the Broken. Speaking of crazy removal, this is a 4-cost primary spell, Rite of Focus. It is a core card. If this is the first card you played this round, you destroy target wonder. If no opponents have played a card this round, this costs 3 less. Now, if you have the link for this card, the Solfera land with the Solfera link, it's only going to cost you 3 energy. So, if no opponents have played a card this round, it is costing you 0 energy to kill anything you want. The big downside is you do have hoops to jump through, right? No matter what, this has to always be the first card you play in a round. You can't wait and see what they play and then use it as removal later in the round. You have to at least wait until the next round if you can't kill the thing you want to, and then play it as your first card that next round. It always has to be the first card you play, no matter what. If you can go first and make sure that you're the first person to play a card and they don't get to, that's where you get the cost reduction. So there are some hoops to jump through. Even if you don't get the cost reduction, you can still play it. If you pass, use an action to draw a card, use an action to attack, whatever, and just sort of stall on actually playing cards, you can still play this later on in the round as the first card you play this round and destroy a wonder, but chances are you're not going to get that cost reduction. If you can set yourself up in a situation where you can make sure you're going first and you're playing it right away, you're going to spend no energy and you're going to kill the thing, and that's going to feel even worse for your opponent. I think this card's really good. It's primary, so you can have 2 in your deck, which is awesome. I can't wait to see just how much of an impact this card makes in the meta. Next up, we've got Great Horned Prismation, a 7-cost primary wonder gemstone titan. It has 8 power, it is a core card, and you double the energy you gain from stones here. Another one that's really good if you're taking stones early, And even better, if you're running all 6 of the formless myth stones, this could be absolutely nuts, right? Just drop all your myth stones in 6, and at the start of 7, make an insane amount of energy from all of them, plus doubling with this guy. You could drop some really, really crazy stuff in round 7. So there is potential for a card like this in a very stone-focused deck. I can't wait until I see someone do something like that, because I think it's going to be absolutely absurd if you can pull it off. Really, really fun. But next up, we've got Ignatius Doombeard. His beard is the Beard of Doom. A 4-cost legendary wonder with 4 power. It is a core card. It has rage. This is probably the best rage card in the set. Whenever you make a rage attack, defending wonders get -2 this round. And on attack, you get to put a +1 counter on each attacking wonder. So a lot of times you might not want to use this guy's actual rage. Maybe you just put him in a realm so that these abilities are always around. Every time he attacks, you'll buff up your whole team of all of your attacking wonders by 1 counter. But also every rage attack you make with other ragers, if this guy can just stay in play, will constantly give -2. Wow. I think this is just like what you build the rage deck around, right? That being said, it is a legendary. You can only include 1. There will be some games where you don't draw it, so you can't go too heavy building around this in particular. But if you happen to get him, I think he's really good. If you happen to have ways of making it so that attacking with rage doesn't make you sacrifice the guy, like the equipment we saw earlier, this gets even better. And if you happen to have ways of, even if you do sacrifice it, maybe you can get it back from the Abyss so that you can keep utilizing it, it gets even better. So I think there are some interesting ways to get the most value out of this card, to really take it for all it's worth. I'm excited to see what people come up with, because I guarantee some of you out there are absolutely thrilled at the idea of trying to put together the rage deck. I'm going to try and make one at some point for sure, but I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. Next up, we've got Magna Vortex Rex. This is one of the most powerful cards in the set. Like, just straight up. I underestimated this a little bit going into the Shattering, and it is just insane. First of all, it's a legendary wonder, dragon, dinosaur, beast. It's got 7 power, and it's a core card. It costs you as little as 4 energy if you have the link. So it's already got decent stats, 7 power for 4 energy. But when this wins a battle, it seizes all stones here. Now, prior to Call of the Stones, there would ever only be 1 stone, with the exception of like 1 or 2 very special mythic cards. There would only ever be 1 stone in a realm, so this ability wasn't as necessary. But now, in conjunction with those couple cards from existence, and all of the formless stones, the myth stones, you could play a myth stone into a realm where your opponent has a myth stone, and then they attack and take your myth stone, and then you play Magna Vortex Rex. And they've got 2 myth stones and the normal stone, and you, with 1 attack, you take all 3, and you could just swing the entire game. But it gets even better because he has a tap-free ability to move a stone in an adjacent realm to this realm. That means you can take a stone into this realm for no action, and then have an additional stone to seize in combat for no extra action, effectively kind of giving you a free stone and making your opponent lose a stone for free. And what's better, you can make sure to line this up so that you are tapping free to take the stone out of a realm that is heavily defended by your opponent, and now that entire realm is useless to them. Everything they put there is a waste, because the stone is now in the realm with the Magna Vortex Rex, along with the stone that was originally there, along with any potential myth stones, and you can just swing the whole game from out of nowhere. It's absolutely absurd. I absolutely love it. I mean, you can pull the stone out of Realm 1, so that Realm 1 is no longer the tiebreaker and Realm 2 is. Granted, the Magna Vortex Rex will have to be in Realm 2, but chances are, if it's there, you're winning combat there, and not only are you controlling multiple stones in Realm 2, but you're turning Realm 2 into the tiebreaker realm, and getting that extra, like, half a stone sort of benefit out of it as well. So many crazy ways to use this card. I expect it to be everywhere in the meta. I think some of you out there are sleeping on it right now, but that's going to change really quickly. This card is bananas. Absolutely bananas. Next up, we've got Obsidian Heart, a 7-cost primary wonder dragon lava noble. It's got 6 power, other dragons you control get +2, which is really, really good combined with all the crazy dragon token makers. If you build like a dragon token deck with this at the top end, you can run 2 of them because it's primary. You can really buff your board to an insane degree. On top of that, token wonders you control are dragons in addition to their other classes. So you don't even have to play the dragon token deck. You can just play a token deck, use all the best token cards, go crazy wide with tokens. Later on in the game, just slam this, and all of them get buffed. This could be really, really crazy. That's going to be a fun one to brew. And I don't know how powerful it's going to be. It's definitely going to be at least somewhat powerful, right? But compared to all of the other meta decks that end up showing up, I don't know how powerful it'll actually be. But it has the potential to be really powerful. And no matter what, it's going to be super fun. And I can't wait to find out how crazy it ends up being. Next up, we've got Pyrathios the Ash Clouded, a 7-cost legendary wonder first form incarnation with 5 power. It is a core card, and wonders you control get on attack +2 this round. The fact that it gives that ability to literally every single wonder you control seems crazy. If you got 4 wonders in the same realm, you're getting a +8 power buff with 1 attack. If any of those wonders have flying, you're taking that power buff with you to another realm, and then attacking there and getting even more power buffs. Like, this has the ability to snowball. Really, you just want to build your deck around having as many wonders as possible, going super wide. Maybe it's another card that belongs in the token deck for that reason, but there is a ton of potential in this. And again, another one I'll be exploring for sure. Next up, we've got Skin-Walking Siren, a 5-cost legendary wonder demon siren monster with 6 power. It is a core card, and on attack, you gain control of a stone here. This is really cool because even if you don't have enough power to win the combat, you can still gain control of a stone. But if you do have enough power to win the combat, you can take 2 stones with this. More importantly, it doesn't count as seizing. So anything that your opponent's using that triggers off you seizing one of their stones, you're not actually seizing it, you're just gaining control of it, which is kind of awesome. You could also potentially not trigger your own negligible abilities that might trigger off seizing a stone. I don't know if any of those exist. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but pay attention to the fact that this says gain control of a stone here rather than seize a stone here, because it allows you to build your deck in an interesting way where you can dodge seizing a stone triggers. And I think that that is super fun. I can't wait to just sort of dive in and see how many different cards can take advantage of that. It could only be a couple, or it might be a bunch. I'm not sure right now, but I'm excited to find out. Next up, we've got Sundara Amphitheater, a 0-cost legendary landmark. It has a Solfera link, can be harvested to gain an action like any land, and if you control a legendary wonder here, its on attack and on battle abilities trigger an additional time. All legendary wonders in the realm with this will trigger their on attack and on battle abilities an extra time. That is really good if you use it just right? If you have a deck with a bunch of on attack and on battle abilities, and then you play this later on in the right realm where you have a bunch of those lined up, it can be absolutely devastating for the opponent, especially if you're using things like Utterly Complex Compound Bow, which technically grants on-battle abilities to the wonder that it equips, allowing you to draw cards and gain energy and put -1 counters on stuff. Being able to trigger that twice with 1 attack or 1 defense because it's on battle seems crazy, but being able to trigger that and all of the other things you have stacked up there as well could get really, really crazy. This is another one I can't wait to build with. It's going to be super fun to see if we can pull it off. Just a ton of potential power. And next up, we've got the Light Primordial. I think this is the last mythic other than the Stone Seeker. This is a 10-cost legendary wonder construct elemental Lightmancer with 10 power, and it is a core card. On arrival, each player gains 10 energy. There are a couple of interesting ways to use this. First of all, if they're out of actions, they can't use that 10 energy, so it doesn't matter that they gain 10 energy. It basically feels like it's a free 10 power thing, or a 10 power thing that gives you 1 energy because it can cost you 9 if you have the link, and then you get 10 back, which, if you line it up just right, is going to be crazy. If they can't get the value off that energy, that will be crazy. but it's also another card that you can combine and synergize with that card I was talking about earlier from the Existence set that allows you to half their energy and give yourself 5 energy if they have 10 or more energy. You play that after playing this, and it takes away all of the energy you gave them. Even better, if they're out of actions, but they have lands to harvest, you play this, they get the energy, they think they get to use it, so they harvest to get actions to use it, and then the next card you play is, I believe it's called Zephyrus. You play Zephyrus, and you cut their energy in half, and you gain 5 more, and now they can't do as much as they thought they could do, and maybe some of those actions that they harvested get wasted. Some really interesting play lines with this, but at the bottom, the floor of this is simply the fact that you get 10 power and an energy kind of for free for like 1 action, right? And that's gotta be good enough if you line it up correctly. So another one that's just gonna be really fun to see how good it ends up being. And that brings us to our last full card to talk about, although we do have a bunch of story tokens that go with him. This is 𝑑𝐄𝐈𝐾 Bonelock, a 5-cost Legendary Wonder Stone Seeker hero fighter with 9 power. It is a core card, and on play and tap free, create a story token in this or an adjacent realm, just like all of the Stone Seekers. This Stone Seeker in particular happens to be played by none other than Chuck Liddell, and you can actually get Chuck Liddell autographed cards, very rarely inserted into some of the packs, which is just amazing. I love this idea that they brought to the game with these celebrity guests, playing these characters that exist within the world of Wonders of the First. It's not some other outside IP coming in. It is its own thing, and you have these recognizable faces playing characters. I just think it's brilliant, and I'm very, very excited about what that brings to the table. But this guy in particular, very powerful. As little as 4 energy for 9 power is already pretty good, but you're going to get 2 of those story tokens. One of them immediately when you play it, and the other one whenever you want by tapping free. So let's check out these story tokens. First up, we've got Whizzlegrip the Commissary. This is the common story token. Legendary story token Wonder. Has 1 power, and on attack, target Wonder gets +2 this round. This is really, really cool, because when you make a story token, it doesn't have to be in the same realm as a Stone Seeker. It can be in that realm or an adjacent realm. So this will go in any of up to 3 realms. You get to take your choice. And then when you do attack and trigger the on-attack ability, you don't have to target something that's in the same realm as this. Any target Wonder will get +2 for the entirety of the round. So if your opponent's about to attack in a different realm on the other side of the board and take the stone, and you just need a little bit of power to defend there properly, you attack with this guy. Maybe you make him in a realm that there's nothing in yet, so you get to attack with only 1 power, still take the stone, on attack, beef up your guy in the other realm on the other side of the board, and make it so that your opponent can no longer attack there and take the stone. Some really cool things you can line up with this. I think for a common story token, it's really way better than it has any right to be. I like it a lot. But obviously the story tokens get even crazier. Next up, we've got Bosco, the uncommon story token. And this is a 1 power story token Wonder. And on attack, you put 2 +1 counters on this. So this will just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it doesn't last until end of round. It lasts forever. It's in the form of counters. And that is pretty significant. Next, we have Vein Render, which is his rare story token, a legendary story token item. It's an equipment, and equipped Wonder gets +2 power, and effects controlled by opponents can't tap this. So, if you immediately on play grab the Vein Render and equip it to your Stone Seeker, your opponent's not going to be able to tap it down in order to prevent it from getting another story token later. It's protected. But there's versatility here in that you can put it on a different Wonder that has a tap ability that maybe is even better, or put it on a different Stone Seeker if you're running multiple Stone Seekers in the same deck. So the variability of this card, the versatility of it makes it pretty good, and the fact that no matter what you get the +2 power buff in addition means it's always going to be at least somewhat useful. Next up, we've got the Epic Story Token, Helm of Heroes. This is a legendary story token item. Equipped Wonder gets +2 power, and whenever a hero you control defends, it gets +2 this round. So if you're building a hero deck where you have a bunch of heroes, all of your heroes get the ability to get +2 on defense. for every time they defend, and that buff will last for the entire round. Can make it really, really hard for your opponent to tack in, take stones, if they're up against a deck that's all heroes. So this is a very specific story token that wants to be used with as many hero tokens, or as many heroes as possible, but in the right deck it could be pretty crazy. And that brings us to our mythic story tokens, the first of which is Yoella Siren, a legendary story token wonder snake mystic with 3 power, and whenever an opponent attacks here, you may tap this. If you do, that opponent sacrifices an attacking wonder. This is really, really good. If you can find ways to untap it, it of course gets better because you can reuse the abilities over and over and over. But if you put it in a realm where your opponent only has 1 wonder, and it's a big, bomby, nasty wonder, and they were thinking that they were going to be able to attack with their next action and take the stone there, think again, because now Yoella is there, and even though she doesn't have enough power to defend against that big, bomby thing most likely, you'll have to sacrifice it if it's the only thing there, if it's the only attacking wonder, which means they just can't attack in. They have to waste more cards, waste more actions, waste more energy putting more stuff into that realm just to have something to sacrifice that isn't their big bomb when they finally do attack. So to slow down your opponent and give them a huge headache, I actually think this card is super good. And last but not least, we have Bartok the Charger, a legendary story token wonder goat fighter with 3 power, and he has the rage ability. This is a story token with rage, which means your Stone Seeker can just sit here for the whole game and wait until the end of the game, and if it doesn't need to tap to make a different story token, it just, for no action at all, just taps, puts this in an adjacent realm, attacks, and takes a stone for no action. You can literally just take a free stone in an adjacent realm if your opponent has 2 or less power there, just anytime you want. Just anytime you want. Obviously, if you use the rage ability, you have to sacrifice this at the end of combat, but if you just wait until your opponent's out of actions, it really forces your opponent to play differently just knowing that this guy exists. Like, they cannot have 3... they can't have less than 3 power in any realm that the Stone Seeker is in, or that is next to the Stone Seeker, or they're potentially opening themselves up to get blown out by this at the very end of the game. I absolutely love that. I think it's going to happen a bunch in Constructed, and I think people are going to underestimate this card a little bit until they finally start to see it being played right. But if you play this card right, it's going to be utterly absurd, and be able to basically get you a free stone at the end of the game, which I absolutely love. But that brings us to the end of the video. Let me know how you feel about Solfera as a whole, if any of these cards speak to you, if there are any cards that you're excited about brewing with, or any deck ideas you want me to approach. Let me know in the comments. I believe Thalwind is up next, and we have some pretty significant cards to talk about in that video, so look forward to that. Please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much for checking out my channel. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible, so honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your contributions. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe. The more likes we get and the quicker we get them, the bigger this channel will grow and the faster it will grow. I'd love nothing more than this channel to become something very special for you guys, but it's entirely up to you how fast that happens. Also, if you'd like more deck text, that's somewhere over there, and if you'd like to see what else the channel's been up to lately, that's somewhere up that way. Also, subscribe, circle below, do all the things.